Hey guys, good morning. Okay, we have almost 9 people. We'll wait for 1 more minute. Let's see whether people join. Good morning. Yes, I know that. Like I don't like I what to say. I have a strong feeling that say some of you are finding it very difficult. Like this whatever we are doing, this problems or say the concepts and stuff, right? It's natural. It's completely natural. Like anybody who's coming from 10th to 11th will always find this problem. As I already told you, it's a huge jump, right? Say you can understand like this much. If I have taught you in 10th class, I would have actually completed the entire syllabus. Like that is the basic difference, right? You have very less to study in 10th, but in one chapter itself, you see how many things are there, right? It's a huge jump. I completely understand. But because of that, you should not be losing hope, right? Say like I am there to help you, your other faculties are there to help you. You should like you are always free to ask. I have already mentioned that you're always free to ask any kind of question. And even if you understand, say 2 3 times also you didn't understand, I am ready to explain you for the fourth or fifth time also. Okay, so if at all you don't understand, please do ask, right? Sir, I am not comfortable, I'm finding it so difficult. You can tell. If at all you are not able to tell with like in front of the class, maybe you can always personally text me and tell. Okay, please do not keep quiet. Please, if you keep quiet, I will not know, right? I completely understand like this. Sometimes the thing which I teach you might go above your head, right? Or say you seem like understanding, but when it comes to problems, you are not able to do it, right? All these kind of problems exist, people. It completely exists, and it is not a new thing. This is what every almost 80% of 11 students will feel once they come to 11th class from the 10th class. This is completely natural. But because of that, you should not lose hope. That's the point, right? You should keep on trying, and at some point you are going to hit the correct track. Believe me on this. Okay, and obviously there is nothing wrong in seeking help, right? There is really nothing wrong. If you're not if you're not if you're say if the faculty, if you're not able to ask, you can ask your friends. They're all your classmates only, correct? Any way which you feel comfortable, you're always free. What to say, you're always free to do whatever it takes for you to get things done. Okay, right? Fine. So I think maybe we'll start now. It's almost 11:35. Let me share my screen. Oh, sorry. Yeah, let me share my screen. Okay, fine. So guys, I think this is what we saw last class. I'll just give you a very quick recap of whatever we were doing. Right. So we just started with some problems yesterday's class. Right. We solved the problems. There were some few like what to say. There were some few difficulties there, but eventually we got the answer. Right. And then I told you whenever we talk about the whole Sol's molarity, how it is connected to the individual ions, that also we saw. Hope you remember all this, right? Then we went on to see, yeah, exactly the problem only. And then yeah, this is what I started with, right? We started something called as empirical formula, right? So I told you that the empirical formula is the simplest formula which you'll be able to attain for a particular compound, right? Say we took the example of benzene, that is C6H6, that is the molecular formula. Now you see that the ratio is 6 is to 6, but if I have to get the simplest ratio is 1 is to 1. So you'll find that the empirical formula is CH. That's it. Now other example was glucose, C6H12O6. Now I'll be able to write the empirical formula as CH2O. Okay. Now why are we studying all this? Is because say like the questions will be given to you, right? Like I told you, how will you identify which, say I give you an unknown compound to you, how will you identify which elements are present? That's the first thing. Second thing is, if I know which elements are present, how much of them each, like how much of them are each are present, basically getting the formula, right? That is what we do. So for finding the element, what element is there, one of the ways I told you, salt analysis. I think you told that you are already writing your what to say, the record notebooks, right? You know how we do it, right? So that will tell you, okay, magnesium is present, nitrate ion is present, those things they will tell, right? Now once you get that, but that is not enough for the formula, right? So for that there's something called as mass spectrometer, right? I told you mass spectrometer will give you two data. One is this, that say it will tell that you already know this, that carbon, hydrogen, oxygen are present. Mass spectrometer will give me the percentage values. Okay, this much amount, this much percentage of carbon, this much percentage of hydrogen, this much percentage of oxygen, that will tell. And second data that the mass spectrometer will give you is about the molecular mass. Okay, now what do you do? First, you use this data, that is the percentage data, and you can easily calculate the empirical formula, right? From the empirical formula, now if you know the molecular mass, you will be able to easily calculate the molecular formula, right? How we do it? I think I told you that also, right? Now you look at this, right? Empirical formula into n factor. There's some integer n. If you multiply that n with the empirical formula, you're going to get the molecular formula. Now, how will you get the n value? Nothing. You calculate the molecular mass of the molecular formula, right? Actual molecular mass, and you calculate the molecular mass of the empirical formula. You divide them. That is going to give you the n factor, right? And you multiply this n with the empirical formula. You are going to get the molecular formula. I think you can see that molecular mass of glucose is 180. Now the empirical formula is CH2O. If you calculate, that will be 30. If you divide them both, you're going to get 6. This is the n value. And if you multiply the n value with the empirical formula, you're going to get the molecular formula, the C6H12O6. Okay, and then we even did one problem based on this, right? X2Y3 problem. Hope you all remember how we did all this. Okay, then the problem came for this. This problem is what is more important. Yeah, they have told that this much percentage of this and this, like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen are present. You have to calculate the empirical formula. Now, what I told you is that you have to make a table first. Okay, make a table. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen are the elements present. In the vertical side, you put mass and the number of moles. Right. So what you have to do is, first step is take the mass percentage as mass itself. Right, mass percentage as mass itself. And then for these masses, you know how to calculate the number of moles. Say this value divided by 12 will be for carbon. This value divided by 1 will be for hydrogen. And this value divided by 16 will be the number of moles of oxygen. Now you calculate what are the number of moles. 2.17, 4.35 and 4.34. Those are the number of moles. Now what is the next step? Among these three number of moles, you choose the smallest one. You choose the smallest one. After choosing the smallest one, divide individual number of moles by the smallest value. Say 2.17 is the smallest value. Divide this by 2.17, divide this by 2.17, and divide this by 2.17. Right? So you will get approximately the ratios as basically this thing as 1:2:2. That means the formula would be CH2O2. This is where we stopped last class. Okay, any questions, guys? Any problem anybody faced with respect to this?
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, what if all the percentage don't add up to 100?
Sometimes it happens, right? Sometimes the percentage doesn't add up to 100, but you don't have to worry about it, right? Why this happens is because sometimes there might be some impurities also. Say these are the elements which make up the compound. Say other than that, I might have some impurities that might see, say 0.05 percentage. Very small amount of impurities will be there. That is why it doesn't sometimes add up to 100. But you don't have to worry about it. Just whatever.
So we can still take the mass as the percentage only.
Correct. You can still take the percentage value as the mass and do the calculation. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, sir.
And
Okay.
calculate the total mass as the impure without the impurities, sir, like 99.5.
Yeah, that you don't have to worry about. Do not worry about
Okay.
whether it's coming up to 100 or not. Just directly take whatever the percentage value is given as the mass and calculate. That's it. Doesn't matter if it's going to add up to 100 or not. Okay. Right. Fine. So maybe we'll do just one more problem, guys, with respect to this empirical formula. Okay. Okay. Please take down. This is going to be a good question, guys. Okay, fine. The question is, an hydrated salt was heated, right? And hydrated salt was heated and it lost, and hydrated salt was heated and it lost 45.6% of its weight. And it lost 45.6% of its weight. Right? Or what did I say? What did I say? Unhydrated salt was heated and it lost 45.6% of its weight. Okay. Now the question it continues. The percentage composition of the anhydrous salt. The percentage composition of the anhydrous salt. Anhydrous, you know, anhydrous means no moisture. Okay. The percentage composition of the anhydrous salt is, make a new page. Okay, so today's date, you are 11th.
Sir, can you repeat the question once?
Yeah, I'm coming. 2706. Yeah. So the question was a hydrated salt, right? A hydrated salt on heating, like was heated and it lost 45.6% of its weight. Okay, so what do you mean by this? Basically, I had an hydrated salt. Hope you all know what is a hydrated salt. On heating, it is going to become anhydrous. Okay, now in that process, it has lost 45.6% of its weight. Okay, now the question continues like this. The percentage composition of the anhydrous salt is, the percentage composition of the anhydrous salt is this one. Al is having 10.5 percentage. Potassium is having 15.1 percentage. Sulfur is having 24.8 percentage, and oxygen have 49.6 percentage. Okay, so the percentage composition of the anhydrous salt is this. Okay. Now the question is, find the empirical formula. Find the empirical formula of. Find the empirical formula of the anhydrous and the hydrated salt. Find the empirical formula of the anhydrous and the hydrated salt. Okay, now this whatever is given to you is for anhydrous salt, right? So then, okay, fine. I'll repeat the question, guys. A hydrated salt was heated and it lost 45.6% of its weight. The percentage composition of the anhydrous salt is this much. All the data is given to you. Now the question is, find the empirical formula of both the anhydrous salt and the hydrated salt. Okay, that's the question. Now, like, don't worry about the hydrated salt now. Now, with this data, for the anhydrous salt, first calculate, do whatever we did for the previous question and tell me the empirical formula of the anhydrous salt. Then I'll tell you how to do it for the hydrated salt. Go for it. Exactly same procedure. Please don't sit idle, people. Please work it out. Potassium's atomic weight?
39.
39.
Sir, I'm getting empirical formula of an anhydrous as AlKS2O8.
Correct. That's right.
Yes, sir. Same.
Yes, sir. Sir, should we have to round off that 1.7 as 2 for sulfur?
1.7 as 2 for 1.7 you're getting for sulfur.
No,
Yeah,
sir,
yeah.
it's almost 2 only, sir.
No, it's almost 2 only, Kana. You'll get exactly 2. I don't think you will be getting 1.7. Anyways, the answer is correct. Now you try for the what to say, the hydrated salt with whatever the data which you have. Okay, fine. Fine. I think this problem should be very easy, guys. Given that we already solved problem like this, let me write it. Aluminium. Okay, actually make some more space. Okay, so aluminium, potassium, sulfur, and oxygen. Right? And I'll take the mass and the number of moles. We'll calculate it. So the first value was 10.5, 15.1, 24.8, and at last oxygen was 49.6. Right? Now, how do you calculate the number of moles? How do you calculate this? Divided by the molecular atomic mass. That is 23 for aluminium, 39 for potassium, 32 for sulfur, and 16 for oxygen. Okay. Now, if I calculate the number of moles, you will get it as 0.39 approximately.
Sir,
And this, yeah.
sir, atomic mass of aluminum is 27, right?
27.
Yes, 27. Absolutely. Thank you. 27. Right. Okay, 0.39. This also you're going to get it as 0.39. This would be approximately 0.78. And this was approximately 3.10. Done? Okay, now what you have to do? Choose the smallest value. The smallest value is 0.39. Okay, and divide the individual values by the smallest value. That is 0.39 divided by 0.39. This divided by 0.39. This divided by 0.39. And this divided by 0.39. Okay, now you're going to get the ratios. Right? This will be 1, 1, 2, and I think this would be 8 times. Yeah, 8 times.
Yes, sir. 8, sir.
Right, that's it. Now you got the formula, right? So it will be you can write KAL or ALK, anything is fine. So KAL S2O8. This is the anhydrous salt formula. Very simple, nothing we did, exactly similar to the previous problem. Okay, now one thing what they have asked extra is they're asking about the hydrated salt also. Okay, and for us to find that, they have told that I had the crystalline salt, that is I had the hydrated salt, right? And that was heated and that became anhydrous salt, right? And in this process, the hydrated salt lost 45.6% of its weight. Okay, lost 45.6% of its weight. Okay, now this lost 45.6%, basically, can I say not what is lost? Basically, water is only lost. When you heat, a hydrated salt becomes anhydrous, only the water molecule will be lost. Okay, so can I tell if I consume the total 100%, right? If I assume total 100%, in that 45.6% is water, right? And the rest 54.4% is the anhydrous salt. Is it correct, guys? What I'm trying to tell you, I will understand. Total 100%, right? In that 45.6% is lost. That means what? What is lost? Water molecule is lost. So if I take the hydrated salt, in that 45.6% is H2O, and obviously the rest of it, that is 54.4% is what is my anhydrous salt. Very simple. This we can say or not. Everybody understood this? Yes?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Fine. We understood this. Okay. Now the problem is going to become very easy. Okay. Now let me calculate what is the molecular mass I'm getting for this. Okay. Now if I calculate the molecular mass, that is going to be 54.4% of the molecular mass of the total hydrated salt. Anyways, let me calculate it. Okay. So the anhydrous salt, if I calculate 39 plus 27 plus 64 plus 16 into 8 would be how much?
128.
128? Okay, fine. 128. So if I calculate the entire mass, it would be, I think 258. I think if you calculate 250 or not percentage, 258 grams. Right now, this is the mass of the anhydrous salt. Okay, now look at this. I can write it like this, right? say I have 54.4% of the weight corresponds to 258 grams, right? Now I can easily calculate if I have the rest, that is 45.6 percentage would be what? X. Now I told you, whenever you have this kind of things, you can go for cross multiplication. Okay, you can go for cross multiplication. Correct. 54.4% is this much. Then 45.6% is how much? That we'll be able to calculate. Correct. Right. So now how will you calculate? This would be X is equal to 258 into 45.6 divided by 54.4. I hope how you did it. X into this into this. So if I have to find X, 54.4 will come in the denominator. Okay, now again the calculation will become difficult, but I'll tell you what is the value. The value is 216. Right, now this 216 is what? Please tell me mass of what?
Water.
Correct. This 216 is the mass of water. Correct, because this 44.6% is what? This is basically H2O. Correct. So this 216, whatever we got, is the mass of water. Okay. Now we can easily calculate what is the number of moles of water now. Number of moles of water would be 216 divided by 18. Okay. And I think if you calculate properly, I think you should be getting it as 12. Okay. Number of moles of water is basically 12 moles. That's it. We found the answer, guys. We already know what is the empirical formula of the anhydrous salt. And along with that, I'm going to have 12 moles of or 12 molecules of H2O also, right? So if I write the hydrated salt formula, it would be KAlS2O8 dot 12 H2O. This is the answer to this question. Okay, I will repeat, like this part is very easy. Until this part, nothing, no changes. Right now, the next part is one little tricky, not very simple. They told that the hydrated salt on heating lost 45.6% of its weight, and obviously, what is lost? Water only is lost. Right now, the anhydrous. So if at all I have lost 45.6%, rest of the weight, that is the anhydrous salt, would be 54.6%. That's what is mentioned here. Right now, I know what is the weight of the 54.4% because I know the empirical formula. I'll be able to calculate the mass, and that value came out to be 258 grams. Right. So now I did cross multiplication. If I have 54.4% as 258, what is 45.6% of weight? And that would be 216 grams. And then that 216 grams, nothing but the mass of water. And I calculated number of moles of water, and that's it. I included it in the hydrated salt form. Okay, I hope
sir,
everybody was. Yeah, please.
Sir, can you give another problem like this, sir, just to get?
Yeah, sure, we can do that. You want to have this anhydrous kind of problem?
Yes, sir. Any problem of this kind, sir?
Okay, fine. One second. Let me check.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, this term we can also do like 54.4% of hydrated salt is 258 grams. Correct?
Correct.
So we'll get the hydrated salt in grams. Then we can then subtract it with 258 to get anhydrous solution weight.
Absolutely. Yes, we can do that. Yes. Right. Can you just repeat? Like basically, can you just repeat what you said, Kana?
Sir, 54.4% of hydrated salt is 258 grams.
Correct. Okay.
So we'll get the hydrated salt weight.
Oh, you can calculate for 100%, and then you 100% value minus 258 will give you the same thing. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Same thing. Right. So basically, what you have to do, instead of calculating for 44.6%, the calculation will be a little difficult. You can calculate for 100%. Right. 54% is this much. 100% is what? And then that 100% is the total weight of the hydrated salt. In that, you have the anhydrous salt to be this much. So again, if you calculate that X minus 258 will again give you 216 grams. Same thing. Yes, that also will work. Absolutely. Okay. Right. Okay. So one more problem on this, but we don't have the anhydrous kind of stuff. So we do have anhydrous, but not in terms of empirical formula. Okay, fine, no issues. Just give me the problem, whatever I have with me. Okay, I don't think if I give you the percentage values, again you use the calculator, it will be same stuff, right? Now let me give a little different problem. Please take down. One gram of hydrated copper sulfate. 1 gram of hydrated copper sulfate on heating give 1 gram of hydrated copper sulfate on heating give 0.6393 0.6393 grams of the anhydrous salt. Okay, 0.6393 grams of the anhydrous salt. Okay, calculate the number of water of crystallization. Calculate the number of water of crystallization. Basically, water of crystallization is basically what you write after the dot. Like last time, the number of crystallization of water was 12. This one, this is 12. Like this, you have to find the number. So it's basically going to be CuSO4.XH2O. You have to find this X value. Okay. So I'll repeat the question, guys. 1 gram of hydrated copper sulfate gave 0.6393 grams of anhydrous salt. Calculate the number of water respiration. Go for it. It is very, very, very similar to the previous problem. Last time we spoke in terms of percentage. Now this time we are speaking in terms of mass directly. I think it is going to be a little more easier than the previous question then. No, it's not directly easy, but still, go for it. Go for it. Think about it and do it.
Sir, is it 0.02?
X value 0.02. That is X.
Yes, sir.
It should be a whole number. Please remember that. Okay, I'll give you one more minute and then I'll do it.
Sir, I got 5.
Yeah, that's the answer. Please. Okay, right, I'll do it. Right. So what they're telling is, if I have 1 gram of CuSO4.XH2O, now on heating it became what? 0.6393, right? So can I tell that, so fine, 1 minus 0.6393 will be the mass of water? Okay, fine. So 1 minus 0.6393, if I have to calculate 1.00, how much is it?
0.3607.
0.3607. Okay, 0 grams of water. Okay, this is what I have. Right. Okay. Fine. We will not be able to directly say that, oh, okay, I know the molecular formula. If I know the molecular formula of the entire compound, then this problem is done. Okay, but we cannot do it that way. But anyways, so we have that the anhydrous, this thing is 0.6393, and what to say, the water molecule, this thing is 0.3607 grams of H2O. Okay, now look at this, people. I have CuSO4 dot say XH2O. Right now, if I heat this, I'm going to get CuSO4 plus XH2. Okay, now look at this. If I start with 1 mole of this, right? Now 1 mole of the entire substance, can I tell that this will be entirely 1 mole and this will be X number of moles?
Yes, sir.
Right? This I'll be able to tell. Okay, fine. Now let us calculate. Let us calculate what will be the, say, only when I have CuSO4, let us calculate what is the molecular mass of this. Okay, now I think if you calculate the molecular mass,
149.5, sir.
So 160, sir, nearly.
Yeah, 159.5. This would be 159.5 grams. That is the molecular mass of CuSO4. Okay, right. Fine. So now you can easily see that here I am going to have, say, if I consider 1 mole of this, 1 mole of this, I'm going to get X moles of this. Now 1 mole is basically this many weight, this much weight, 159.5 grams. Okay. So what are we doing here? Okay. Now you can easily understand, right? Now you understand that 0.6393 grams of copper sulfate, you added that with I think how much? 0.3607 grams of H2O. Right? Now how do I don't know what is this, right? For 159.5 grams of anhydrous copper sulfate, I will be able to calculate what will be the mass of water percent. That's it, right? Now we'll not keep it as X, we'll keep it as Y. Okay, so now for 0.6393 grams of copper sulfate, I had this many grams of water. So if I have 1 mole of copper sulfate, that is 159.5 grams of copper sulfate, I am going to have Y grams of H2. Done. And you can again calculate this, cross multiply and calculate it, right? So now that would be Y is equal to 0.3607 into 159.5 divided by 0.6393. Okay, now if you calculate what is the Y value, now the Y value you will find out to be 90 grams. Okay, now you can easily calculate what is the number of moles now. Number of moles is only basically X moles. So X, that is the number of moles of water, will be what? 90 divided by 18, which will be 5 moles. That's it, guys. We got the answer. The formula of the hydrated salt is CuSO4.5H2. That's it. Very simple. Okay, again, I'll repeat what I said now, right? Fine. So we can directly start from here. Okay, so CuSO4.xH2O, if you heat, you are going to get CuSO4 and XH2. Okay, so if I start with 1 mole of the entire thing, you will get 1 mole of this and X moles of this. Very simple, right? Now, I can calculate what is the 1 mole's weight. 1 mole's weight is 159.5 grams. Okay, now from the data, we have 0.6393 grams is the anhydrous salt. Okay, now that was combining with 0.3607 of H2O to form 1 gram of this. Okay, so I can write it like this: 0.639 of anhydrous copper sulfate combines with 0.360 grams of H2O. So if I have this many grams, that is 1 mole of the entire salt. Okay, now that will give you some Y grams, and that Y grams you calculate to be 90. Okay, now you know you can easily calculate the number of moles. The number of moles of copper, number of moles of water is 5, and the number of moles of copper sulfate is still 1. Right, 1 copper sulfate, 5 water molecules, and that's it. Now you got the formula as CuSO4.5H2. Very simple.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Yeah, please, sir.
Sir, why you want 0.3607 grams of water is there now, sir? We divide it by the molar mass, that is 18.
Yeah.
So
then we'll do
get
it
the
in
number
terms of number of moles. Correct.
Number of moles. Why won't that work?
It will work. It will work. Why will it not work?
Sir,
Easily
it works, sir. It works.
Yes, it will work. Say now
I
you do
did it
like
in
this,
that
right?
method only.
But everything has to be converted in terms of moles then, right? You have to say I have 0.6393 divided by 159.5 moles of anhydrous copper sulfate will combine with 0.3607 divided by 18 moles of H2O. Then you can calculate for 1 mole how many moles of H2O. Now you will find the number of moles of H2O to be 5 if you do the calculation.
Okay.
Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, that will work. Definitely it will work. There are various methods for us to solve a particular question, especially in this chapter, right? You will have multiple methods of solving one particular question. And if it what to say, I am following certain method, it is not required that you have to follow the same method. If you have a better method, easy way of calculation, please go for it. At the end of the day, whether you get the answer or not is what is the matter. Okay, right? Fine.
Sir, I have a doubt in this.
Yeah, please, sir.
Sir, I did it by using the empirical formula and the simple ratio of water and copper sulfate.
Okay.
So I got the simple ratio as 0.2:1, sir.
0.2:1.
Yes, sir.
What is 0.2? What is 1?
0.2 is copper sulfate.
0.2 is copper sulfate. So copper sulfate is to water. You got it as 0.2:1.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Now, but what I want for 1 mole of copper, 1 mole of copper sulfate. What will be the answer then?
5.
5. That's it. That's the
Sir,
answer.
but then they never asked for 1 mole of copper, right?
No, even though they don't ask for 1 mole of copper sulfate, but we know, right? If I have say if I calculate only for 1 mole of this, basically for 1 molecule of copper sulfate dot XH2O, or I can say it like this: for 1 molecule of copper sulfate, how many molecules of H2O are required? Right? So either you can talk in terms of 1 molecule. 1 molecule, again, the calculation will be very difficult. But if I speak in terms of 1 mole, the calculation will become very easy. Right? Per molecule of CuSO4, how many water molecules are combining? That's what we need to know. Right?
Okay.
So from the ratio, what I understand is for 0.2 molecules of CuSO4, 1 molecule of H2O is combining. Right? So if we have total 1 molecule of CuSO4, then 5 molecules of H2O has to combine. So either you speak in terms of number of molecules or number of moles, it is going to be same.
Okay.
Yes, do you understand this thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Good. Fine, guys. That is about this empirical formula. I think we'll not spend much time on this. Right now, there is one thing which I forgot, and one student actually reminded me yesterday. So that was about this isotopes. Okay, right. So basically, for example, if you see chlorine, okay, first thing, we know what are isotopes, right? Isotopes will have same atomic number, but different mass number. This we already know. Okay, now that means chlorine has 2 isotopes like this. I have chlorine 37 and chlorine 35. Both of them will have 17 and 17 as the atomic number. But you see the mass numbers? Mass numbers are 35 and 37. Okay. Now for these kind of things, but what we generally tell, we tell that the atomic mass of chlorine is 35.5. It is neither 35 nor 37. Correct. We know the atomic mass of chlorine is 35.5, which is neither 35 nor 37. How did we get this value is the question. Okay. Now there is a calculation. Yeah, please tell me.
It's average.
Correct. It's not average. We should not tell it as average. It's coming like this. Okay. Now see, chlorine 37 and chlorine 35 will have certain abundances. Like say, I will tell that in the atmosphere, what the form in which chlorine is present. Say this is 70%. This is 30%. Okay. 1 second. There's a lot of background noise. 1 second. Let me mute myself for some time. Now it's better. Fine. So, like say, if this was 50% and 50%, that is 50%, and this was also 50%, then you can take the average. We thought you can take the average means 35 plus 37 divided by 2, which will be 36 grams. But we are not getting 36, you see. It is 35.5. That means it is not 50% and 50%. It is going to be some other percentage, say 70% and 30% or 60% and 40%. Some kind of percentages will be there. Okay, now how do you calculate the exact atomic mass? Let me tell you, there's going to be a formula. Atomic mass is equal to percentage, or I'll write like this. P1 plus M1 plus P2 plus M2 divided by 100. This is what you're going to do. What is P1, P2? P1 and P2 are percentage abundances. For example, you can tell, say this is 70%, this is 30%. P1 is 70, P2 is 30. Okay, and M1 and M2 are the isotopes mass. Say M1 in this case will be 37, M2 would be 35. Okay, so M1 and M2 are the masses of the isotopes. Okay, so now like with this formula, if you apply this formula, we don't know the exact percentage values. If you know the exact percentage values, if you supply that, you are going to get this value as 35.5 grams per chlorine. Okay, very simple formula. You can remember this formula, guys. Very simple formula. Yeah, atomic mass is equal to P1M1 plus P2M2 divided by 100. P1 and P2 are the percentage abundances, and M1 and M2 are the masses of the isotope. Okay, like from this also problems can come. Very simple formula. Okay, this I forgot to tell you. Right now, this will work for all the elements which is having some isotopes. Hydrogen has isotope, phosphorus has isotope, even sulfur has isotope. For all these things, you will actually see that this is how they calculate it. Okay, and this is also one of the reasons why atomic masses will be in decimals. Right, you will see atomic mass, you will see in decimals, but mass numbers will never be in decimals. You see, fluorine 35, 37, but what I get the value for atomic mass is 35.5. Okay, because I do this calculation, sometimes atomic mass comes out to be in decimal. Okay, but the mass number values will never be decimals. Okay, fine. This is what I want to tell you, right? Fine, we'll go on to the next concept, guys. Right, the next concept is stoichiometry. This is what we have been waiting for a long time to see. Okay. Right. So now you have learned.
What is it?
Yeah, coming to that. So
No,
now,
sir, like what is the word?
Oh, what does the word mean? Stoichiometry. This is METRY.
Okay.
Okay, fine, fine. Okay, so like now that you have learned everything, you know about concentration, you know about atomic mass, molecular mass, empirical formula, say number of moles in different ways, everything you know, right? Now you are going to apply it in a chemical equation. Okay, now I already told you what you mean by stoichiometry. Say I have A plus B giving C plus D is a reaction to us. Right now, if I know information about any one of them, A, B, C, D, either A or B or C or D, if I know any one information, right? Say assume that I tell you that this is some 1 mole of this is mixing, right? 1 mole of B is reacting. I will be able to calculate for A, I'll be able to calculate for C, and I'll be able to calculate for D. Okay, this process is what is called as stoichiometry, right? By knowing information about one of the reactant or one of the product, the information about all the other reactant and products can be calculated. Okay, and that is what we are going to do. Okay, so for that, we actually, I should have told you before itself, before I have started empirical formula, I should have told you this. There are something called as laws of chemical combinations. Right? Laws of chemical combination. Like there are 3 laws, but only 2 are required for you. In your syllabus, there are only 2. Say first one is what is called as law of conservation of mass, which you have already studied in your 10th class. Right? Based on this only, you go for balancing. Hope you all remember. Guys, do you remember law of conservation of mass?
Yes, sir.
Mass can neither be created, but can neither be destroyed, but can be transformed from one form to another form. Right? So whatever comes out, say if this total mass is X, this total mass should also be X. Right? Whatever goes in has to come out. That's what is law of conservation of mass. So based on that only, you go for balancing the chemical equation. That you would have done like so many number of times in your 10th class. Okay. Now second one is what is called as law of definite proportions. Right? Now, please take down the definition, guys. Law of definite proportion, or is also called as law of constant proportions. Anything is fine. Okay? Law of definite proportions or constant proportions. Please take down the law. If 2 elements, or if 2 or more elements, if two or more elements combine together, if two or more elements combine together to form a compound, if two or more elements combine together to form a compound, comma, irrespective of the method, irrespective of the method of preparation, or the source, irrespective of the method of preparation or the source, again comma, the ratio of the elements combining, the ratio of elements combining will always be a constant. The ratio of elements combining will always be a constant. Right? So I think this, if again, I'll repeat the statement, guys. If two or more elements combine together to form a compound, comma, irrespective of the method of preparation or the source, again a comma, the ratio of the elements combining will always be a constant. That's the thing, right? So if you look at this, guys, very simply we can say, right, now based actually, like, I don't know whether this is going to help us in doing a stoichiometry, but this definitely is going to help you do the empirical formula. But maybe even though you didn't know the law, but still you have been indirectly using it in all these empirical formula problems. Okay, so what it says is that, say for example, I need to form H2O, right? I know hydrogen and oxygen are the only thing that is going to combine to form H2O, right? So what are they telling is, whether you form H2O by method 1 or method 2 or method 3, or whether you find water in well or pond or in tumbler, the ratio of hydrogen is to oxygen is always going to be 2:1. Right? Now this we speak in terms of molar ratio, moles ratio, or I can tell it's moles ratio. Right? 2 moles of hydrogen and 1 mole of oxygen combined together to form 1 mole of water. Right? 2 moles of hydrogen and 1 mole of oxygen will combine together to form 1 mole of water. Now this is the constant ratio, right? Now I can even speak in terms of mass ratio, right? What will be the mass ratio? Basically, 2 hydrogens will give 2 grams and oxygen will be 18 grams. So now the ratio is 1:9. This ratio is also constant, no issues. So either you talk in terms of molar ratio or you talk in terms of mass ratio, whatever the ratio you speak in terms of, that ratio is going to be constant irrespective of the method used to prepare or where you find the compound from, irrespective of where you find the source of the compound from. Right? This is what is called as your law of definite proportions.
Sir,
Okay, guys? Yeah.
even for the quantity, it will be same. Like if the quantity, if it is 100 grams or even if it is 1000 grams, it will still be the same, right?
Yes, irrespective of how much ever you have.
Okay.
Right? It is going to be a constant value. Doesn't matter. Okay. Right. So that is what I wanted to tell you guys. But again, this is not going to help us much in doing the stoichiometry problems, but definitely this is going to help you in doing the empirical formula problems. That is why actually we remember from the mass percentage values, I converted them to mass, and actually from that I calculated the molar ratios, and that ratio is going to be constant no matter what. Okay, fine. Anyways, so we'll concentrate on this stoichiometry now. I told you what is stoichiometry. Basically, if you have information about any one of the reactant or one of the product, you will be able to get the information about all the other reactant and all the other products. Okay, fine. We will see how to do it. Right? Now the moles, the ratios, everything is going to help us. Right? Okay. We'll start with something very simple. Okay. Now let me take, say, water. Okay. Now water, say if I heat water or if I supply electricity, this is going to give H2 and O2. Okay, this is going to give H2 and O2. Okay, now guys, for doing stoichiometry, the first and foremost thing is that you need to have a balanced chemical equation, right? If you do not have this, the entire problem is wrong. Okay, the entire problem is wrong. The first step is whatever be the equation, check whether the equation is balanced or not. If the equation is not balanced, you have to balance it. Okay, now in this case, we have to balance it, right? You will put 2H2O here and 2H2 here. Now that everything is balanced. Okay, now I give you the data like this. I tell that, say I have, now, okay, before I get to the data, right, guys, now in any equation for that matter, the ratio of reactants and products are going to be exactly same. Now, if I look at the ratio is nothing but the stoichiometric coefficients. Here it's 1. Right? Now the ratio, if I write H2O is to H2 is to O2, if I write the ratios, what will be your answer? Please tell me.
2:2:1.
Yes, absolutely. 2:2:1. Okay. Now this ratio is going to be constant irrespective of whatever be the number of moles you had here. Right? For example, if I tell that say 0.5 moles of H2O are reacting, and I ask you how many moles of H2 is formed and how many moles of O2 is formed. Right? Now, what do you do? First, you write the balanced equation, get the ratios out, right? Then you can easily do it. Right? Now you have, now you can easily go for cross multiplication, or you can use the ratios itself. Now I told you that H2O is 0.5 moles, right? Now see, 2:2:1. That means H2O and H2 are in the ratio of 1:1. Basically, 2:2 means 1:1. We'll talk about this later. Okay. Now H2O and H2 are in the same ratio, 1:1, right? So if I use 0.5 moles of this, I should be getting 0.5 moles of this also. Correct? Okay. Now forget about this now. Forget about this. We'll consider H2O and O2, right? Now, if you look at H2O and O2, the ratio is 2:1, right? The ratio is 2:1. That means what? For 2 moles of H2O, I get 1 mole of H2O2. So if I use 0.5 moles, what should come here?
Divided by 2.
That is divided by 2 is basically
0.25.
0.25 moles. Okay, guys. This is exactly what is called as stoichiometry. Okay, so first step is to balance the chemical equation, right? And look at the data what they are giving you, right? Okay, after balancing the equation, you can get the ratios out, right? After getting the ratios out, look at what information have they given you, right? In this case, they have given you 0.5 moles of H2O is present, right? So if now you write this here, so if first you compare H2O and H2. Right? So 2:2, that is 1:1 is the ratio. So if I have 0.5 moles, this should also be 0.5 moles. Okay, now you compare H2O and O2 now, the ratio is 2:1, right? So basically if I had 0.5, this should be half of that, that should be 0.25. Okay, now this is one way of doing with respect to the ratios. Okay, or you can go for cross multiplication because that will be an easier method. Please don't use this. Okay, now this will work only if I have simple numbers. Okay, now if I have little complex numbers, guys, you have to go for the cross multiplication method. Now, how will I go for the cross multiplication? Is very simple, right? Now you don't have to write the ratios here. Now, the moment you have the balanced chemical equation with you, you will be able to write this. What will you be able to write? I'll be able to write 2 statements. One first statement is 2 moles. See, you can tell that 2 molecules or 2 moles. Either of them are going to be same because I know moles and the number of particles are directly proportional. Hope you remember the first things which we saw, number of moles calculations. Okay, so now this stoichiometric coefficient which you have, this 2, right, can either be molecules or number of moles. Okay, but we'll use only number of moles. Okay, so this stoichiometric coefficient are directly going to be used as moles, not molecules. Okay, so now once you have the balanced chemical equation, you can write two statements. The statements are 2 moles of H2O will give 2 moles of H2. Yes, you can see here. 2 moles of H2O gives 2 moles of H2. That's exactly what I wrote here. Second statement, what you can write is 2 moles of H2O will give 1 mole of O2. Right? 2 moles of H2O will give 1 mole of O2. Done. Now these two statements you can directly write. Right? You don't need any other information. This 0.5 moles and all are not required to you. The moment you see the balanced chemical equation, you can write these two statements. Okay, now you have to look into what is the data given to you. The data given to you is that they are telling that 0.5 moles of H2O is reacting. Okay, now you can go for cross multiplication. You write 0.5 moles of H2O. Here also, obviously, it is 0.5 moles of H2O. Okay, now say I have to calculate how many moles of H2 will keep it as X and how many moles of O2 will keep it as Y. Okay, now you know how to do the cross multiplication. If you do the cross multiplication, you will find that the X value, that is the number of moles of H2 as 0.5 moles that is formed, and you will find that the number, if you cross multiply and find out Y value, you will find to be 0.25 moles. Okay, now I would suggest you use only this method, that is cross multiplication method. This method will be little tricky sometimes. Don't use this. Okay, again and again I repeat, people, the moment you see the balanced chemical equation, this statement and this statement can be directly returned. We do not require any other information, right? Now from the second information, that is from the information given to you in the question, that is 0.5 moles, then you can go for calculating the other stuff. Okay, fine. Now we'll do one more question, like one more example I'm going to give you. Okay, right. So I have N2. Okay, fine. I'll not balance it. Right? N2 plus H2 gives ammonia. Okay, N2 plus H2 gives NH3. Okay, now I'm telling that I am using 6 moles of H2. Okay, this is basically 6 moles, right? I want to know what is the number of moles of N2 required and what will be the number of moles of NH3 formed. You do this now. Okay, and
Sir,
remember,
N2 is 2 moles and NH3 is 4.
Sorry.
Sir, N2 is 2 moles.
N2 is 2 moles and NH3 would be
4, sir. 4.
Yes, correct. Yeah, but others, please do it, right? Now, first thing is you have to balance this equation first. First, balance it. Okay, so if you have balanced it, you will get N2 plus 3H2 giving 2 NH3. Okay, now forget about the 6 moles. You don't even need to worry about it. You directly go for the statement, the first statement, right? First statement would be, now this is 1, this is 3, this is 2. Okay, so what can I write? Now I have 1 mole of N2 reacts with 3 moles of H2. This is one statement, right? Second statement is, now see, second statement will, again, which two are you going to combine? Look at this, the information is given about H2, correct, right? So it's better you connect H2 and NH3, okay, right? Now again, you connected N2 and H2 here. And the next thing is you connect H2 and NH3. So how can I write the second statement? I can write the second statement as 3 moles of H2 will give 2 moles of ammonia. Okay, so I hope everybody is getting this. 3 moles of H2 gives 2 moles of ammonia. Done. Okay, now that's it. That these two information is directly we are getting it from the balanced equation. Then you see what information is given to you. The information given to you is that they're telling that 6 moles of H2 is reacting. Okay, now what do? You write wherever H2 is there, I have now 6 moles of H2 what will be the number of moles of N2 required, right? And I have 6 moles of H2 here. What will be the number of moles of NH3 formed? And you can directly calculate that it should be X is equal to 2 moles. You will calculate easily, cross multiply, right? And this also you cross multiply, you will find that Y would be 4 moles. That's it. Okay, now guys, I want a yes from everybody, whomever is there in the class. Either you unmute yourself and speak, or you put in the chat box. Go for it. Everybody understood? Yes, hope you're there.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in the previous case, in the case of H2O, we did it like 2 moles of H2O gives 2 moles of H2 and
Yeah.
1 mole of O2, sir. In this
Correct.
case, we can we write, in the case of N2 plus H2, we can write as 2 moles of NH2
NH3.
NH3 gives
Requires 3
3.
moles of, yeah, you can write it any way you want. See, it's not like only this has to come this side and this has to come this side. Like say this can come this side also, this can come this side also, and you can get this side also, this side also. Anything is fine. You can compare anything and anything, no restrictions. Okay. So yeah, guys, I want a S from everybody, right? Please go for a S if you understand. If not, please tell me what you didn't understand. Is everybody okay? Okay, it's a lot of chats. I hope everybody is doing well. Right? Okay, fine. Cool, guys. I'm so happy that if you again and again, I'm telling, this is very basic. If this you don't understand, there are going to be more complex problems coming to you. Okay. If you don't understand, please tell me that you didn't understand. I can go for it again. Anybody wants to explain, get this explained again? Anybody wants? Okay, I suppose everybody is doing good. Right, what is the time? We have 15 more minutes. Okay, right. Fine. Guys, now this you understood. Okay, now we are talking in terms of number of moles directly. Okay, now sometimes what will happen is they will not give you moles directly, but they will give you something else, right? Say they can give you mass, right? Or they can give you volume and molarity, right? So these are the different, or they can give only volume, right? So whatever be the data given to you, whether they give mass, or whether they give molarity and volume, or they give you only volume, whatever be the data, you convert this into number of moles, right? You know how to convert mass to number of moles, given mass by molecular mass. You know how to convert molarity and volume into number of moles. Molarity into volume will give you the number of moles. Again, you know how to calculate, how to convert volume into number of moles. Basically, if you remember the formula, number of moles is given volume divided by 22.4 liters. Hope you remember the formula. Okay, so whatever be the data given to you, either in terms of mass or volume and molarity or volume, the first step is to convert them in terms of number of moles, right? But even if you don't convert, there are ways of doing it directly, but again, we will not confuse ourselves, right? Unless and until you become a pro in all this, in the stoichiometry, till then you use only number of moles, right? Now, you can directly do with mass also, but please, we can do it volume also, molarity also, but we will not do it. I am not going to teach you. Okay, if you come up with that method, well and good, right? Because the converting into number of moles is the easiest way. Okay, fine. So this is in our mind. Maybe if I'll do only 1 or 2 problems today, right? And then actually I will be a little satisfied, and you will also be good, right? Let us do this.
Sir, in the equation before, sir, which you gave, so we can also say that one volume of N2 reacts with 3 volumes of H2 to give 1 volume of NH3.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
We can
similarly,
get-
if they give the volume of any one reactant, then we can also calculate the volume of the product, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, we can do. That's what I told you. Say they give in terms of volume. Now I told you
So
can
then
directly
over
do
there, we don't need to convert.
Yeah, you don't need to convert. You don't need to convert. Why is because again number of moles and volume are directly proportional. That's the reason. Okay, but if at all you want to convert and you do it, or you can directly do it in terms of volume. Very simple. And that depends on what data are they asking in the question. Are they asking volume? Then you directly do in terms of volume. If they ask in terms of number of moles, then you have to convert it into it.
Okay,
Do you understand
sir.
what I'm telling? Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Let me do it like this. Okay, now I have this equation with me, or I'll just take some question, right? Say I take, okay, okay, CaCO3 gives CaO plus CO2. Okay, right? Now this is the equation, and if you check it properly, it is already balanced, so you don't have to do much about it. Right. So I tell you that there is 50 grams of CaCO3 present. Okay, 50 grams of CaCO3 is reacting. I want to know what is the mass of this and what is the mass of CO2 formed. Go for it. I told you that whatever data given to you, convert them into moles and then do the exact same thing.
Sir?
Yeah.
So can you repeat what should we do?
Yeah, so basically I told you that 50 grams of CaCO3 is present. I want to know what is the mass of CaO formed and what is the mass of CO2 formed. Not the number of, but in terms of mass.
Sir, is it 28 grams and 22 grams respectively?
28, yeah, correct. Right? Okay, very simple question, people, right? So now if I calculate, now, okay, before we move on, right, we'll write the statements. The statements are, now everything is 1, 1, 1. So the problem is going to be very easy, right? Say I write 1 mole of CaCO3 gives 1 mole of CaO. Same way, 1 mole of CaCO3 gives 1 mole of CO2. Very simple, right? Now let me calculate what is the number of moles of CaCO3. Number of moles of CaCO3 is 50 divided, this is a given mass, divided by the molecular mass. Molecular mass, you'll find it to be 100 if you calculate it. Okay, calcium is 40, carbon is 12, oxygen is 16. Okay, so this will basically be 0.5 moles. Okay, so now 1:1:1 is the ratio. You can easily tell that if this is 0.5 moles, right, this will also be 0.5 moles and this will also be 0.5 moles. Done. Okay, now that you know what is the number of moles, now you can calculate the mass, right? Again, the mass of CaO will be, say, 0.5 is equal to given mass of CaO divided by molecular mass of CaO would be 40 plus 6 would be 56, right? So you will find that the given mass of CaO would be 28 grams. Same way for CO2, which will be given mass of CO2 divided by molecular mass of CO2, which is 44. So you'll find the mass of CO2 formed would be 22 grams. Very simple. Okay, so guys, I'm telling you, in this chapter, the easiest part is stoichiometry. Okay, the other parts are also easy, but comparatively, the stoichiometry part is the most easiest one. Okay, and questions also will come from maximum from this also, like this only. Okay, so the answer is here is this is 28 grams, and the answer to the CO2 will be 22 grams. That is the answer to these questions. Okay, right now I exactly told what I did. Right, I just converted everything in terms of number of moles. I calculated the answers in terms of number of moles. Then again I calculated in terms of mass, because they needed mass. They don't need number of moles. The question was to find the masses of these two. Okay, I hope everybody is doing well. There is no confusion. If there's anything, please do let me know, guys. What is the time? 52. Okay, maybe we'll do one more question. Or let me introduce you to this one. Okay, right. Now the same thing, guys. I have H2. Okay, I'll write, okay, N2 plus 3H2 giving 2 ammonia. Okay, now till now what we saw is that only one information was given to you. That is, say either N2's information, or if I can give H2's information, then you can calculate other stuff, right? But what if I give information about both the reactants? Say I tell that there is 2 moles of N2 reacting and say 3 moles of H2 reacting. Okay, 2 moles of N2 and 3 moles of H2 are combined, and I'm asking you what is the number of moles of NH3 formed. Okay, guys, in these kind of questions you have to be a little more careful. Okay, because you see 2 and 3, right? Fine. Anyways, why you have to be a little more careful is because now you look at this. Okay, now 1 mole of
The ratios are
N2.
different, sir.
Yes, the ratios are different, right? So 1 mole of N2 basically requires 3 moles of H2. Okay, now how many moles of N2 I have? Basically, I have 2 moles of N2. So how many moles of H2 is required? Can I say 6 moles of H2 is required? Right? But how many moles of H2 I have given in the question? I have given only 3 moles. Right? That means, or I'll write in other words also. I write, right, 1 mole of N2 requires 3 moles of H2, right? And if I write, now how many moles of this thing is given? 3 moles is given. So if 3 moles is given, how many moles of N2 is required? Only 1 mole is required. But how many moles of N2 is given? 2 moles of N2 is given. Again, I repeat, people, for if I have 2 moles of N2, I require 6 moles of H2, right? But what I have here is only 3 moles, right? So if I have 3 moles of N2, all I require is only 1 mole. But what do I have here is 2 moles. Okay, that means the whatever is required is not exactly right, right? One of them, right? One of them is going to be in excess, right? Can you tell me which is in excess, N2 or H2?
N2, sir.
N2.
Absolutely, right? For 3 moles of N2, I require only 1 mole. Right, but how much have they given? They have given 2 moles, that is 1 mole excess. They have given 1 mole excess to us. Okay, now whichever is excess, how you find out whichever is excess is what is called as your excess reagent, right? And whatever is there to the exact requirement, right? Say 3 moles is the exact requirement, obviously, or I would say which is not in excess, right? That is what is called as your limiting reagent. Very important. Okay. Now remember this, whenever there are 2 or 3 reactants and all the reactants information are given to you like this, right? The first step is to find which is the excess reagent and which is the limiting reagent. Okay. Now you can do like this. Then you can compare both of them. Say for 2 moles, how many moles is required? If it is lesser than the requirement, then definitely that is the limiting reagent. Or if you calculate the other way, for 3 moles, I require only 1 mole. This is an excess. Then directly you can tell that this is going to be excess reagent. Okay. Now after finding which is excess reagent and which is limiting reagent, once you find this out, then forget about the excess reagent, because that is going to be an excess. That is not going to help us anyways, right? Limiting reagent is the one which is there to the exact requirement, right? So based on the limiting reagent, then you calculate the product number of moles, right? For now, after you find the excess reagent, limiting reagent, forget about the excess reagent. Based on what is the data for the limiting reagent, then you can calculate what will be the data for the product form. Now it's very simple, right? Now 3 moles of, now forget about this, right? So 3 moles of H2 gives 2 moles of ammonia. So I already have 3 moles. So this should be 2 moles of ammonia getting. That's the answer to this question. Okay, now same data, like let me find if we can N2 plus 3H2 giving 2 ammonia, and I tell that I have say 3 moles and 6 moles of this. First tell me which is excess reagent, which is limiting reagent, and then we'll talk about the product. Tell me which is excess, which is limiting.
Sure, N2 is in excess.
N2 is in excess. Okay, fine. So H2 will be limiting. Think about it very properly. You do this thing, right? What I did here, I did 2 times, right? 1 mole of N2 gives 3 moles of H2. So if I have this much, how it is required, then you do the other case also. Both the things you do, and then you decide, and then tell me.
Sir, H2 is an excess.
H2 is the,
I think H2 is an
Sorry,
excess.
N2 is only excess.
okay. So okay, I'm getting 2 answers. One saying N2 is the excess reagent, one as H2. Come on, guys. I want everybody to participate in this. I want to know which is the excess reagent. I want everybody to put in the chat box. Go for it. Everybody put it in the chat box. I want everybody to participate, right? I want to know which is the excess reagent. Put in the chat box. N2 is excess. Okay. Come on, I have almost 13 people here. All 13's chat must be there. I got only 1. You can calculate and tell me. I'll wait. No issues. Okay, this is the data. H2 excess. Okay. N2 excess. I got 3 answers. Go for it. Go for it. Everybody. Okay, 4 answers I got. N2 is in excess, they say. Okay, Navya, Tarush. Guys, please bear with the background noise. There's something going on the road. Okay, fine. I hope rest of all are either calculating. Okay, I have a doubt. How to form the statement if 2 reactants and 2 products are given? 2 reactants and 2. We'll come to that, Karna. Don't worry. We'll solve problems like that. Very simple. You have to make so many numbers. Maybe I'll tell you. Wait. After this ends, I'll tell you. Okay, Harshita? Right. So now coming back to this. Right. Now we have to check, right? So I'll write 1 mole of N2 requires 3 moles of H2. Done. This is the first statement, right? Now, how much of N2 is given? 3 moles of N2 is given. Okay, so now if I write it as X, if you cross multiply, you will find that the X value should be what? Should be 9 moles,
Yes, sir.
right? So if I have 3 moles of N2, I should have 9 moles of H2. But how much do I have? I have only 6 moles. So obviously this will be the limiting reagent and this will be the excess reagent. Or I can do the opposite. If I have, say again, write the statement, 1 mole of N2 requires 3 moles of H2. Now, how many moles of H2 I have? I basically have 6 moles of H2, right? So if I have 6 moles of H2, can I tell that I'm going to have 2 moles of N2 is required? But how many moles are there? You have 3 moles of N2. But what is the requirement? I require only 2 moles, but there is 3 moles. So definitely this is going to be the excess reagent. This is going to be the limiting reagent. Okay, right? Now you can easily tell then what will be the product. For 3 moles, it is 2 moles. For 6 moles, it is going to be 4 moles. Again, if you want, you can do the cross multiplication and find it out. Right? The 4 moles of NH3 will be formed in this question. Right? Now, answering Harshida's question, maybe I'll take an example. Right? Say I write HCl plus NaOH, or I'll write H2SO4 will take. H2SO4 plus NaOH gives NaCl plus H2O. Okay, I have to balance it. So I think this will become 2 and oh, where NaCl coming from? I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. This is Na2SO4. Right? This will be Na2SO4. Okay, done. So now this will be the balanced equation. I think 2 moles of H2 will be formed. Yeah, 2 moles of H2 will be formed. Okay, this is the balanced equation. Now you are asking me, well, how do we do it? I'm not going for any other information. I'm just having the balanced equation. How I'm going to write? Very simple, guys. 1 mole H2SO4 requires 2 mole NaOH. This is one statement. Second statement, say I compare H2O and Na2SO4. 1 mole H2SO4 give 1 mole Na2SO4, right? Or I can compare this and this now. 2 mole NaOH gives 1 mole Na2SO4, and say now comparing this and this, 2 mole NaOH gives 2 mole water, or I can even compare this and this, right? The other statement I can write is 1 mole Na2SO4 gives 2 mole H2O. Like this, I can write the statements, right? And depending on what information is given to you, you can correspondingly compare and cross multiply and find out the other one. Okay, Harshita, I hope your doubt is clear. Okay, cool. Right. So guys, I think I'll wind up for today, right? I hope everybody got everything cleared. If you have any doubts, please do ask me. If you're asking personally, yeah, please tell me, Kana.
Sir, as you told in this, the 4, like 2 reactants and 2 products, suppose they give the mole of one product and they give the number of moles formed in the mole of one reactant and the number of moles formed in
one product.
Yes, one product. So can we find the limiting reagent?
No, then we cannot find Kana. They have to give 2 reactants. If I have say 3 reactants, okay, and if they give 2 reactants is number of moles, then you can calculate this limiting reagent with excess reagent. But 1 reactant information, 1 product information, no, that won't work. We will not be able to.
Sir, but I think we can, sir, because suppose we know the reaction. If we know the reaction and the whatever products and the reactants, then we will also know the number of moles. Like suppose.
Indirectly we can do. Say, like guys, if anybody wants to leave, they can leave. Okay, I'll take this 2 more minutes. Thank you so much, guys. I will just take. Is the screen sharing still on? No, right?
No, sir.
Okay, 1 second. Right.
Sir, in
say,
the same example, sir, which you gave.
yeah,
Yes,
in the
sir.
same example, I understand what you're asking. Say I will tell that 2 moles of H2O are formed, and say I'll tell that 1 mole, I'll say that 4 moles of NaOH is there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if I tell it like this, yes, I can tell, right? So obviously, for 2 moles of H2O to be formed, I require only 2 moles of this. But how much I have is 4 moles. So definitely this is going to be the excess reagent. And this will be
Yes,
the
sir.
limiting. Even though I don't know the data about this, but indirectly I can tell that this is the limiting reagent. Yes, that is possible. Yeah. Okay.
We just know that one reactant is in excess, then we
Ah.
can't say that the which of the other two is limiting, right?
No, definitely. If one of them is in excess, definitely the other one. Or see, there is only one possibility. Either, but I cannot have both of them to be excess, right? Say, this will be in excess for sure because from the data we can understand. Then for sure, H2SO4 should be limiting. Right.
No, sir.
For
What if
example,
there are 3 reactants, sir? In case
okay,
of
if
3
there are
reactants,
then
then if we come to know that one of the reactant is in excess, then we can't decide that which is limiting reagent.
yeah. Say for example, if I have 3 reactants A, B, C, right, and I find out that this is in excess, we cannot tell which is going to be, or if I have the data, I will be able to tell. But we will not generally can tell that okay, this is limiting or this is limiting. We cannot tell that because I can have 2 of the reactants to be in excess and only one of them to be limiting. That is also possible. Or I can have 2 of the reactants to be limiting and only one of them to be in excess. All these possibilities are possible. All these possibilities can be found out if I have the information. How many moles of this? How many moles of this? How many moles of this? If I have, yes, I will be able to tell. That will be able to tell.
Okay, sir.
Right? Okay. Cool.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir,
continue.
so basically, in the following the Subhajit's doubt, sir. So on you said no, sir. It's not like the exact same. It's like non-excess is called limiting, sir.
Correct. Non-excess is called limiting. Absolutely correct.
So it will basically means that the right, I mean, like which can be divided can be not limiting.
Yeah, which is there to the exact requirement is the limiting.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Understood.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
We'll do more problems on this. We'll do at least some 5 to 6 problems based on this. Don't worry. You will
Okay.
get a very clear understanding when you do problems.
Okay.
Okay. Anything
Thank you,
else,
sir.
guys?
Thank you, sir.
Anybody? Yeah. Okay. I hope. Fine. Is there any other question anybody want to ask?
Clear, sir.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Thank you so much. We'll meet again on next Saturday. Right. Thank you so much. I'm ending the class.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.